everybody, and welcome back to Writing the Rapids, the show where I, Joe Bielecki, talk to writers about writing. Very often, those writers have been recommended to me by writers who have previously been on the show, or it's a Rejoinder episode, which this is. We're rejoined by Michael Tichy to talk about the book he co-edited with Valentina Rojas, called In the Eyes of the Hungry. Michael Tichy is an author and psychiatric nurse practitioner from the gaping maw of gray America that is Ohio, co-author of the award-winning experimental haunting book Void House. His debut novel, The Winnowing Draw, was released in 2024. You can find him on Twitter at Michael Tichy NP. Before we get into my conversation with Michael, let's remind you that you can help out the show financially at Patreon. Patreon.com/NoisemakerJoe for just $2 a month. You can get these episodes a little bit earlier than everybody else. If you'd like to leave a one-time donation, you can do so at paypal.me/NoisemakerJoe, or you can buy my book. It's called Tired, and it's pretty good. If supporting the show financially is not in the cards for you for whatever reason, word of mouth is, I think, the best way to support the show. Tell a friend, heck, tell two friends about Writing the Rapids. Watch them subscribe on whatever service they use. Otherwise, comment, like, subscribe, leave a little dog emoji in the comments of this one. And without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Michael. As the old adage goes, I think there's, you can easily say there's two types of people in the world. There's people who know that Steinbeck wrote a werewolf novel, and there's people who don't. I had forgotten, so I fall into the secret dangerous third category of people who just don't remember things. And so I was telling my wife about this book, and I was like, yeah, you know, it's like Steinbeck inspired horror. And she goes, what? Why? Because the only
Why indeed?
the only Steinbeck we have read was for school back in high school. We read East of Eden as like summer reading into an AP English class, and I think that might have been for our 11th grade junior year. So I don't know. A lot of it was kind of over our heads, and
yeah, I mean, that's ambitious. It's a big ass book. We read of Mice and Men when I was a kid. Like, you know,
yeah,
it was a little on the much shorter side, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, that's why they call it AP, I guess. Maybe it was even senior year. That doesn't matter. The point is that we read that. That is our context collectively as a couple for Steinbeck. And I'd seen on social media, by virtue of the circles I hang out in, here and there, time again, that Steinbeck had written a werewolf novel and it never got released for one reason or another. And that's what In the Eyes of the Hungry sort of imagines, right? It's what if that novel had been published? How would the landscape of horror literature have changed, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was certainly, it was the inspiration and the launch pad for it. Like, it's, you know, so not having read the book myself, the thing is, I mean, so it's not completely unavailable, right? You have to go to his archive. I forget which university in Texas it's located at, but you have to go to the archive and you can read it at the archive. Like you know, so it's, I mean, it is a very limited access thing that exists, but there are people who have read it. I mean, one of the articles I read about the book, the guy had actually read the book and was kind of like, well, maybe there's a reason he didn't release this book. So it wasn't like, you know, the person was like blown away by it. It was very much, I mean, it was an early work, and he was very much an attempt at writing a genre book, you know. So that's all I really know about it. I would love to go down and visit the archive and read that thing. I'm sure it would be a trip, but regardless of you know, the relative quality of the writing.
Yeah. So as an editor, for this, what were you and Valentina kind of looking for? Did you have, in your head the sort of answer to the speculative question, or when you put the asks out there, was it much more open and you were kind of looking to see?
It was, the net was broad, and we broadened it as we kind of, but for both of us, this was our first attempt at editing a book, or doing a submission call or any of that stuff. So, what happened initially was that we were getting a lot of werewolf stories, and I was just like, I'm okay with a couple of these, but I don't want it to be the Steinbeck werewolf anthology, and so I was just so as it kind of went on, I was afraid people were hesitant to submit stuff that was kind of more out there. And so I kept on encouraging people hey, if you wonder if it fits, don't worry about it, send it our way. And I feel like ultimately we got a pretty good mix of stories. So yeah. It's interesting. Steinbeck actually, so the only horror that I've encountered by Steinbeck is it's kind of peripheral. There's a short story he wrote about this kid who accidentally kills someone and goes on the run. And there's these things called Dark Watchers. It's like a phenomenon in it's one of the oceanside areas in mid California, maybe mid to north, and people report seeing these things it's like a figure, and people have explained it. It's kind of like a trick of the light. There's various explanations for it. Steinbeck's kid was obsessed with those, and he's actually published a book, a photography book with accompanying writing about it. I've not seen that book, but I'm aware of its existence. So anyway, the presence of the Dark Watchers is this kind of horror element in that story. I kind of hoped we would get a Dark Watcher story, but it's an obscure enough story. I don't think most people have read it. I kind of accidentally found it. So it's, but anyway, so that's just a kind of tangent, I guess. But I guess it also tells us that, there was a little bit of horror in there with Steinbeck wrote a lot. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we got some classic monster stuff, and we got some weird stuff. It was good. I think, the core of what we were going for was thematically, the places and people, and to me, kind of the importance of community and worker solidarity and stuff really came through.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking about, was that this, I feel like, is one of the most explicitly leftist horror books I've ever read. And granted, my horror reading is shallow. But you just got the union organizer who's, a vampire or whatever, and just you can't kill me. You can try. I'm going to keep popping up. Which metaphorically works, right?
Yeah,
you can't kill an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's two, explicitly, union oriented stories out of 9 stories in the collection. So that's, almost 25%.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it's oh yeah, okay. I really enjoyed Brendan Vidito's from Cold Cometh the Devil.
Oh yeah, I just reread that this morning. That thing slaps. It's so good.
Yeah, he's been on the show twice, and he's fantastic. He needs to have more things published, in my opinion. That kind of reminded me of the section in your novel that we talked about, where it's that cabin outside time.
Oh yeah,
sort of thing. but yeah, I love this Western idea of you've just kind of somehow like fallen off of the earth. You've gotten so far away from civilization that it doesn't like, here be dragons sort of thing.
Yeah, like the Borderlands idea that like you're somewhere, yeah, you're somewhere in the gray between like this world and another, like the normal rules don't apply. Yeah, it's cool stuff. Because it's weird, like reading that one read of that book is very much like it like a werewolf story in the context of people who don't have a concept of werewolf, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's one way of reading it. But I love that it's just, that I love the vagueness of it in the sense that it's just, you know, is that what these things are? Like, to them, they're these, like they're punishment from God. And that's just that's just brilliant the way that he frames that. And I mean, it's such a, like the way the story ends is just it's so gray too. It's like, like what is happening versus what is this person's perception of what is happening, So yeah, it's a really cool story. I'm so glad he subbed that.
Yeah. Of Bats and Apes was really fascinating too. You have a not really Frankenstein's monster sort of character, but kind of similar.
It has the most like pulpy quality, I think, of
Yeah.
anything that's in the book. It like, I mean, she really took the assignment of like kind of the universal monsters and just like ran with that. So it's just, yeah, it's got like, it's dark, but it's got like, kind of, that almost like playfulness of like some of those movies from back in that era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anytime you got a circus, it affects the whole sort of tone of what's going on. But yeah, and I love the complexity of the vampire character in that book too. She reminded me of Carrie's mom. In a very much like, no, don't go hang out with those boys. They're going to be bad to you sort of thing.
Yeah, like maybe from a nicer place than Carrie's mom was coming from.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things where like, mom was right, but she's gonna hold the fact that she was right over you, but she wasn't like right for the right reasons. She like backdoored herself into being right about these people. That motherly figures seem to be very good at doing. Under the Wall was an interesting one too, because that doesn't take place in America.
No. But I mean, it's the spirit of it is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, it's, I mean, people under oppression, trying to escape the shackles of an authoritarian system, so, but yeah, it is a really interesting closer for the book for sure.
And I kind of want to speak more broadly. About, I don't know, the idea of, we touched on it, but the idea of like this sort of like frontier, I'm trying to phrase it right. Like, I don't know, if the big city is the campfire, the idea of the American West, or even kind of like plains area being this just outside the warmth of the campfire idea. Mm-hmm. It's a really fascinating like locale for horror, I guess.
Yeah, it's and I think the era, like kind of the Dust Bowl era that we're, that that a lot of this stuff, at least ostensibly, takes place in too, is like, you know, I think about like that series Carnival, you know, in a similar vein. It's just there's this feeling of, you know, lawlessness that's, I mean, it kind of harkens back to a more like, um, you know, like 100 years previous kind of Western era, you know, um, where, I mean, the the landowners are essentially like lords, you know, of the territory, and to the extent that authority exists, like law enforcement, it exists to, you know, protect them from the people, you know, and so the individuals themselves truly are out on a like on the ragged edge, like and all they've got is each other to lean on and protect them, because, you know, effectively, you know, to the extent that the government exists out there, it doesn't exist for them, you know. And I think, I mean, that certainly is part of what brings it like to relevance to our current era, right? Because I think a lot of people, I mean, hell, you know, certainly in the last 6 months, a lot of people are feeling that same way. Um, yeah, so kind of comes around again and again, cyclical, I guess, which
Yeah,
sucks.
doesn't it just? Um, you know, it. Um, I remember listening to some historical stories of the frontier and how, like, so many times that the first time the federal government sends troops anywhere in the West, it's like um in retaliation for something the indigenous people were retaliating on the settlers for.
Sure.
Where it'll be like, yeah, a bunch of Native American women got kidnapped, so all the men came into the town and got the women back and, you know, got their pound of flesh, and then suddenly the National Guard's here or whatever. And then now there's a fort, and now there's an outpost, and now there's, you know, cities being built up
Yeah.
around it. Which is, I don't like that, I guess. It's like it makes,
There's not much to like about it.
no, like there's a logic to it. But then I don't know, it gives cities in the West like an extra sinister quality then, I guess, because it's like, you know, why is there civilization here and not 50 miles to the north? And it's like, well, the history of it. So
Yeah, all these towns out there named Fort something.
mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of fucked.
And you have a story in here too. Talk about bitter fruit.
Yeah, I mean, and I was hesitant, you know, I have mixed feelings about inserting like my own work into something that I'm editing. And once I kind of was inspired and wrote the story, I took my hands off of it and just kind of sent it to Barbara and to other people, like the Castaigne guys that I was working with. And I was just like, you know, please tell me this is, you know, tell me this is shit, and we don't need to include it, you know, whatever, you know. But everybody loved it, so whatever, like it's in there. Yeah, and I mean, I would say it's you know, I was reading a lot of Steinbeck at the time, and you know, it might be the most like explicitly like, you know, like Steinbeckian story that's in the anthology. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, actual like migrant pickers, you know, in a bad way, but like, um, yeah, my own, I don't know, I think my McCarthy kind of love comes through there too, with like the creepy old man and the evil that, or the darkness that moves in the soil, you know. So like, yeah, so but yeah, and it's like a straight up, I mean, like ultimately it like strip away everything else, and it's kind of a straight up nature revenge kind of story. So like, it's kind of thing that's always satisfying to write, I guess,
Don't I know it? I don't think it got you to explicitly
But
say.
I think Peach Pit Man is a pretty creepy like visual,
Oh yeah,
so
yeah. Yeah, I'm curious. What is it about Steinbeck that connects with you about his writing or subject matter?
yeah. um I mean, yes. I mean, I think, like there, and I mean, there is this connection to the West, and like, and that's, I mean, I grew up in California, and I just have a strong connection to the land out there, I think. And I grew up poor, so there's like, I mean, it's very easy to relate to these characters, but like, you know, um, like the way that, the way that he captured, the importance of our connections, I think, like, there's this such a strong thread of individualism in so much of American literature, and I'm not to say that that's not there, um, but but there's such the emphasis is so much on on a collective, and also, if you read The Grapes of Wrath now, like, at the ages we are now, I mean, it's also just there's some hilarious shit in there, and then there's stuff where you're just like, man, Steinbeck really fucking hated cops. Like, so it's, I mean, I guess there's a bounty, I mean, and his writing is so broad, like, I mean, you read like Cannery Row, and it's like, it's a very different book from like Of Mice and Men or The Grapes of Wrath, and so there's just, it's a kind of a smorgasbord there, I'll admit that I haven't read East of Eden yet, so like, it's on the list.
Yeah, 500-page family saga, book of Genesis retelling, something. Like, yeah, I just never returned to him after reading that, because I don't know, I was one of those kids in school where it's like, I like reading, but I don't like being told what to read, or I like writing, I
Yeah.
just don't like being told what to write. And now I feel like all of my reading is just stuff that people tell me to read. Right? Half of this show, or half of my reading life, is reading stuff for this show, which is all recommendation based. And then the other half is pretty much me just like trying to fill in gaps that I notice in my knowledge from listening to other people talk on this show. Right? And so it's like,
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot. Like, every once in a while, I'll grab a I don't know, pulpy science fiction something at the used bookstore and read that. But it is funny how my entire life, all of my leisure time, is me just doing what other people have suggested of me. So 14-year-old Joe can deal with it, I guess. So you said this was your first time putting this together. Was that the case for Valentina as well?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's both of us.
So what was
So,
it like doing it together? Was it nice to have somebody there?
oh yeah, I mean, I can't. One, I mean, you know, like, I can't even fathom like people who put out calls and get like 1,000 submissions or something like that. Like, I just, and I think people at that scale, at that point, you just have to be good at like reading like two paragraphs and figuring out whether you really need to read any further, because like, we read every story in its entirety that was submitted to us, and she and I both read all of them, and then we kind of came together in terms of like rank ordering. Like, I mean, we were pretty much in agreement like 90% of the time on stuff that we didn't want, for sure, and then it was like kind of a rank ordering, and then the debate process started of like, well, what to include and what to exclude, so. but she has an incredible eye. Like, I mean, I think if I was on my own, um, I don't, I'm not sure that I could come up with as like a cohesive and like, like solid selection of stories if we weren't collaborating on it. Like, I just, like, she's got a big picture brain better than I do, I think. So yeah. So it was an awesome process. I don't know if and when I will ever want to do an anthology again. It's a very cool thing, but it's also just a tremendous time sink, and I'm selfish with my time. Like, you know, so
Mm-hmm.
like, while you're working on that, I mean, it's hard to work on like other stuff, while you're grinding away at something like that. So yeah.
So now you look at people like Sam Richard and with a newfound
Oh
sense
yeah, I
of
mean, Sam,
wonder.
yeah, I mean, yeah, if Sam does an open call, he's gonna get like 500 submissions easy. So, um, yeah, it's and you just like I said, I mean, at his stage, you just have to have a process. Like, there's no way you can read front to back 500 stories. Like, you'll just lose your mind. Like, you just wouldn't be able to like think in order to make decisions at that point. It's like.
Yeah. And I imagine so much of it is like affected by your mood too, so you can't like necessarily marathon reading these
No,
stories because after
because
four or
because
five you're just spent.
100%. Yeah. After, I could sit down and read short stories like that for, like an hour, maybe two. But you have to be like mindful of where your head is going. Like, if you get to the point where you're just like, man, I'm just feeling like a fucking little petty, irritable little tyrant right now. Like, I need to do something else because I can't even give anything a fair shake at this point.
So how long did the process take to I don't know, from submission call to sending the finalized edition to the
um,
printers?
like everything in publishing, it takes a lot longer than you think it's going to. Like, so, and I had a lot of stuff that came up in the process that kind of delayed it. Like, my life over the last like year and a half had some real like ups and downs that kind of took me out of the running for a little bit. But yeah, I think altogether, um, maybe like a year and a half.
Hmm.
Like, um, yeah, like, I mean, our target was to get it out a little bit sooner, but it was like, yeah, and I kept on essentially sending out apologetic emails to people like, hey, we're still working on this. It's just not happening as fast as we would like. But yeah, it's a process, and like, and there's stages that proceed that have to proceed in a particular order and that take a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, even like, once our part of it is done, then it's like then it's us waiting along with everybody else while like the publisher finishes the stuff that they need to finish with it. So it's yeah. And I've been spoiled in a lot of ways because a lot of my stuff, uh, it hasn't taken that long from the time like I finished my final draft to when it's like sees the light of day. But that's very atypical of what publishing really is.
Yeah, I feel like it is either a super long, arduous process, or it's kind of snap your fingers and it's done somehow. But I think a year and a half is pretty good. Like, there's what, uh, 9 stories?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so for a book this size with that much stuff, I think a year and a half is perfect. Um,
I'll take it.
um, and yeah, we're approaching half an hour. Um, Do you have anything to say about the cover art? It's really striking.
Yeah, it's I think Talmadge at the Castaigne found it. It's public domain stuff, so it's let's see, yeah, Kathy Kollwitz, Beim Dengel. I can't pronounce the title of it, but yeah, I mean, he kind of turned us on to options of stuff we could look through, because I really don't understand how to navigate the realm of public domain art at this stage. But yeah, as soon as we saw that, I mean, both of us were like, yeah, that's it's just, yeah, it fits perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, do you even have to? Does copyright even matter anymore? Are there rules? Are there even rules?
I mean, it just depends. It's sort of like, I guess, sampling was back in the 80s, right? It's just kind of like it depends on your scope, like at the distribution that we're likely to have on this book. The likelihood of getting caught for using a copyrighted image is probably pretty low. But I wouldn't feel very good about using somebody's shit without paying them. Like public domain is fine. But we knew we did. I mean, we basically just didn't have the budget to like pay somebody to make, a custom cover, from the ground up anyway. So that was pretty much out of the picture. I mean, yeah. So we were grateful to find the art that worked so perfectly for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of money, let's finish out with this about how you are using the money that you're bringing in personally from this book.
Yeah, I mean, anything I make off the book is going to go to No More Deaths, which is this organization that I've been, kind of aware of and trying to contribute to, on a semi-regular basis for a few years now. But basically, they're like a what's the word I'm looking for? They provide assistance, or they provide like care and support for people at the southern border, basically. So it's like to try to prevent people fucking dying while they're crossing over, which is it's, I mean, probably higher risk now. I mean, I guess it depends on how you take it. I think that probably the traffic over the border is lessened just because of how hostile our country is to foreigners at this point. But it's, there's this interesting, it goes back from like even before like the first Trump administration, the strategy for trying to reduce traffic under the Obama administration was to essentially, focus security efforts on the safest paths across. And the idea was that if all that's left is these most dangerous crossing areas, it's going to reduce the traffic across the border. So like, it's not, like a Democrat versus Republican issue. It's obviously much, much worse with the current administration. Don't get me wrong. I'm not both sidesing it, but both parties have a very long history of like a kind of horrific like tactical strategy when it comes to like trying to reduce like immigration across the southern border, for sure. So anyway, yeah, No More Deaths is, kind of what it sounds like. They're just, they're involved in activities that try to provide resources that are going to prevent preventable deaths, because it is, it's a very dangerous thing. Like, a lot of people die coming over.